Welcome to a very muffled Business Pants.
I like our intro music.
I couldn't really hear it, but in pre-production it sounded really nice. This is Business Pants. I'm Damian Rollis. That's Matt Moscardi. Together we are Free Float Media. This is our first show of November. In some ways, this feels like our first show.
It kind of is. So this is if you're listening to this as a podcast,
Which you should be.
It's important to recognize we've actually been doing this show live for like several weeks on YouTube and Periscope, a bunch of places. YouTube, Periscope, right. Twitch.
Yeah.
And
because we're that much better than a regular podcast.
We've actually been recording this show for months. Just to practice. So
it's called practice.
So let me tell you something. The shit show you're about to see is a well-practiced shit show. What's your name, Damian Rollis?
Exactly. It is Damian Rollis. You got that right.
I've been practicing. Matt Moscardi? I am Matt Moscardi. This is Business Pants.
Yeah, and you have to know, people, that this is a lunchtime news show, and the idea is that you listen to it regularly. And you start to understand the narratives more, right? I mean, if you listen to it once, this is not the intention of the show. This is not a one-off Ira Glass, show about a maid in Minnesota who fell down a well, right? This is the daily news, and the more we talk about these things, the more you'll have a fuller understanding from our depth of knowledge and experience, right, Matt?
This is the show where we help you put on your business pants one leg at a time and understand the business news, because honestly, the business news sucks.
Yeah, it does. It's terrible.
It really is terrible. It's really hard to understand if you don't pay attention all the time. And if you're like a normal human being, it's not that interesting. So this is where we are the Venn diagram between the investor class who knows the business news, and we will give you some new insight, and the normies who don't care. We're where they meet.
Rest assured, I share the opinion of many of you who are repelled by people who do business news and talk about financial news, and I myself am one of them. I mean, I used to go into the elevator at work and look at myself and feel a sense of vile repulsion. So we're here to soften out the edges, right? This news isn't just for all the Leon Coopermans of the world.
Oh, let's get into it then. Oh, you're getting right into it.
Yeah, November 4th, 2019. We're going to talk about the McDonald's CEO getting fired. We're going to have some silly stories from silly CEOs.
Ooh.
We're going to introduce a new category covering the gig economy.
All of them are new if you're listening to the podcast. So
that's true. We have a lot of silly little stories and biz nuggets, and then finally, Matt makes. I don't know what Matt makes today, but we'll talk.
Matt's making some math.
Matt's making math today, so let's get at it, Matt. So I'm going to start the clock. Our first story. Let's start in our apology tour, where McDonald's CEO Steve Easterbrook has been fired after engaging in a consensual relationship with an employee that violated company policy. Mr. Easterbrook was widely credited with turning around McDonald's. Mr. Easterbrook wrote in an email to employees, "This was a mistake. Given the values of the company, I agree with the board that it is time for me to move on." So Matt, I don't want to belabor this story, so I want to quickly get at what I think are the two most important takeaways, and then we can talk about it a little bit. Yeah. First of all, how the hell did this happen so quickly? Like how does a successful CEO? I mean, we've been talking about Boeing CEO for weeks.
Yeah, so that's it to me.
Who is at the helm of two fatal plane crashes. This guy is dating someone and he's gone. So let's talk about that. Second, we can also talk about the fact that despite these words, I looked into Mr. Easterbrook's separation agreement, which was just posted today. online, and he's actually really wasn't fired for cause, which means that he's getting his whole bag of money.
Oh,
Like, right?
thank
Like
God.
this is not a proper
Oh,
firing. This is not an actual mistake because he is getting the full bucket of cash.
I was concerned.
Yeah, as you should be.
All right, can we talk about can I ask you about the like I don't understand this. Um so I am fully on board with the sort of me too, this is not appropriate. Stop
Definitely. Yeah.
leveraging your power, white male thing.
Yeah.
I'm fully on board with like eradicating that,
Yes.
in corporate environments. In fact, did a ton of research around the fact that, I did it in Women in Finance. And I'm going to talk to David Fraser. Shout out to David Fraser, who I used to work with. Did a paper on diversity in workforces and how basically, the short of it is workforces are just kind of, they're fucking crazy when it comes to power dynamics, right? They're really
Yeah.
weird.
They're a stagnant pool of rancid water.
But how do you even explain the fact that Boeing has that dude is no
I don't know.
longer the chair, and that's it.
That's it. And he's still making. Nobody can. I read a bunch of articles this morning. No one can quite figure out how to claw back the money that he did earn for being at the helm of a company in charge of two major fatal plane crashes. So he's still getting his money. I don't know. And I looked at the McDonald's board because we talked about last week how Boeing's board is stuffed with
Ex CEOs and current CEOs.
Yeah, CEOs
right.
and some of his friends, but that's really the same thing at McDonald's. So I don't know. Obviously this is a story there's going to be more and more coming out because this is just it's too crazy that it happened so quickly. I don't know. I really I can't. I don't know. I can't understand.
It actually reminds me of the Barnes and Noble CEO who, okay, if you're outside of the U.S., you really don't care about Barnes and Noble. It's a bookseller in the U.S. Okay,
that ruined all mom and pop bookstores.
Yeah, basically, it was the Walmart for bookstores. Until Amazon became the internet Walmart for bookstores, destroying Barnes and Noble. But the Barnes and Noble CEO had some sort of I can't even remember if it was like non-consensual or consensual
but there was consensual.
There was some anti-policy, taking advantage of his power with secretary style story.
Yeah.
And he was gone. Like we woke up and it was like Barnes and Noble looking for a new CEO. Like it was like a sign out in front.
I think it happened to Intel too. I think it was exactly the same story.
Can we just agree that maybe this should be called the Ken Fisher policy? Don't talk about women's genitals getting into their pants. Right. Don't try to get into their pants. It doesn't matter if it's consensual or not. If you are the CEO, your best bet, go on OkCupid. Let IAC Interactive actually find your next date.
Two things here, Matt. Is that are we sure it was a relationship with a woman? Probably. I mean, CEO.
No, I'm being heteronormative, but
it's got it. It has to be.
But this is also, isn't he also the guy who was like, I don't understand plant-based meat. I like my meat to be meat. Like that was him.
Second of all, and we're not going to do it here because I'm sure that it's all over Twitter, but there's so many jokes that you could insert here, right? Given the values of the company, given the values of McDonald's, who is like, making kids sick across the world. Anyway.
Look at you and your buzzer.
Let's move on to before we move on, we're obviously going to be talking about that a lot. I know we are.
Yeah, we got to come back to this.
Let's move on to CEO's rule. Okay, I'm
every time it happens, it's really relaxing.
Lots of little tidbits today highlighting the erratic behavior of some of our favorite CEOs because after all, aren't they all our favorite CEOs? They're just such wonderful characters.
When we launch our CEO trading cards.
Ooh, yeah. It's a nice hint.
Free Float Media coming soon.
Foreshadowing. Okay. Here's a guy we talked about last week, Leon Cooperman. Fast becoming America's crankiest billionaire. I love it. Who is CEO of hedge fund Omega Advisors. So now he's writing a letter to presidential candidate hopeful Elizabeth Warren, accusing her of admonishing him on Twitter, quote, as if a parent chiding an ungrateful child. I mean, this is, I'm sorry, but this is sad. This is like, put this in the Ken Fisher category of, fear of women. And this is just sad.
Okay, that's where I wanted to ask you that. Is this like, if it was a dude, would he write the same letter?
I don't see any letters to Bernie. I mean, I haven't yet.
Bernie's been doing this for like 20 years.
Yeah, longer.
I think.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
I mean, like, but in fairness to Leon.
Yeah. Oh, please, let's be fair to Leon. And I like how his scathing anti-woman fingers right by my head. I love it.
Yeah, in the video, it's he's literally scratching you with his anti-woman finger. No, but in fairness to Leon, because let's be fair, we are fair and balanced. We are the Fox News of business news.
Right. This is Fox News.
Leon did only get engaged directly by Elizabeth Warren after he said if Elizabeth Warren becomes president. For those of you who don't know who Elizabeth Warren is, Democratic presidential nominee potential in the U.S. If she becomes president, stocks will fall 25%, and she's basically terrible for the universe. Like, he is really aggressively anti-Elizabeth Warren and, to a lesser extent, Bernie Sanders because of their stance on billionaires.
Yeah, he hates progressive politics.
But can we all agree that having a stance on billionaires, that billions of that stance being people with billions of dollars probably don't need any more help? That's Leon's not into that.
No. Remember, this is the same Leon Cooperman who got busted for insider trading by the SEC. So,
congratulations, Leon.
Way to go, Leon. I'm pretty sure Elizabeth Warren has not hit that mark
little
yet.
From column A, little from column B.
Next in our CEO tour, after a checkered history with Twitter, this is a story you're going to like, Matt.
I love stories.
Tesla CEO Elon Musk announced that he was taking a break from the social network by tweeting, not sure about good of Twitter, going offline. Right? So
that one
I know you like to talk a lot about, CEOs and Twitter and like why bother. So
so Elon definitely didn't run that one by the lawyers first, just based on the grammar.
Okay.
Not that Twitter is a place for grammar police, although the grammar police they're all over Twitter. This one, I generally think CEOs on Twitter is a bad idea because nothing good can come of it, except that this is a loss. This is a Twitter loss, and it's an investor loss.
Entertaining tweeter.
Is there anybody whose brain you want to understand more than a guy like Elon Musk?
Oh, I think I have an answer for that.
Segue alert.
Yeah. So lastly, our favorite failed up CEO, Adam Newman. I'm going to start referring to him as a guy who fails upwards. This is who he is.
That's got to be a thing.
CEO Adam Newman of the failure that is the We Company has been accused of gender discrimination and smoking pot in front of a pregnant staffer. So Adam's former chief of staff is suing the We Company for allegedly sustaining a substantial gender pay gap, among other accusations. The suit alleges that Newman asked the former employee about her plans to get pregnant during a 2013 job interview and repeatedly called her maternity leave a vacation.
Can I suggest a number for that lawsuit?
Yeah.
1.7 billion feels good.
That's all I need to hear. That's the right answer. All right, let's jump out of our CEOs.
Just for those who don't know, 1.7 billion was how much Adam Neumann was paid to fail up. What's our next segment?
I'm introducing a new category today.
Ooh, I like new.
I might have devoted too much time to it, but this will give us a chance to filibuster. I'm waiting for the docile tone. Okay, so new category is the big gig. Oh, I like it. So Matt has put up a nice graphic of a bearded George Washington holding out a sign looking for a job.
Our design team is nothing if not excellent.
Yeah, it's true. So this is a place where we can talk about all of the many and frightening tentacles of the gig economy, because there's a lot here, and I personally see it as like an important metaphor for our future. I don't know, but not only about corporations, but just about us as a society. I don't.
What is this? The Walt Whitman segment?
It could be. Look, luckily, I create this in the segments and do the writing, so I can say whatever I want. All right, but of course, you can tell me I'm an idiot. So, all right, here today
I'm gonna smoke some weed and yell at a pregnant person while you're talking. Hold on.
Today in the big gig. All right, first, the CEO of Airbnb tweeted. Here we go.
See, get off the Twitter unless you're Elon Musk.
I guess this is the official way of talking. Anyway.
I'm sorry, you used more than 280 characters. I stopped listening to you at 280.
The CEO of Airbnb tweeted that the company
I don't even know.
The company would bar party houses and step up its efforts against unauthorized parties after 5 people died at a Halloween party in a California home that was rented on Airbnb.
How do they okay. Criteria for what makes a party house?
A party, okay, I think I know the answer to this. A party house is a house at which a party is occurring.
Okay. Investor question. What percentage of Airbnb houses are not party houses?
Well, 100% of the ones that I stay in, because I am
honestly,
this is family man.
This is do you remember like when the Super Bowl would happen? I think I'm supposed to call it the big game, or else the NFL might sue me. But the Super Bowl would happen, and people would go out and buy, quote unquote, like 79-inch televisions and then return them the next day. This is the physical equivalent of that, isn't it? This like the housing equivalent.
Yeah. I will say this to Fred Meyer in Portland, Oregon, is that when we did move there after college, we didn't buy TVs routinely and return them. We didn't do that.
I do think Airbnb has a business model problem if they start clamping down on people who want to party.
Yeah, but here's the reason why I created this category and why I started with this story is that it's a slippery slope. That I don't know. That's how I'm seeing this. Like it's a, this is what the internet's become. It's like
the old slippery slope argument,
right? You create this giant utopic vision, and then you have no real rules or regulations to figure it out, and then you kind of, in a panic, right? You just keep trying to make it better, or I don't know. Maybe I'm making it more about like what's happening at Facebook, but I see this as a big problem in the gig economy. What do you think?
I mean, I do have a serious concern that everybody involved in any aspect of the gig economy, there's this weird feeling I have, like where like Uber and Lyft have been, at the forefront of the labor, issue, like the problems with labor and how they're categorized in California in particular. But as much as we talk about how much it's going to hurt Uber and Lyft and Airbnb, maybe to a lesser extent, I do wonder how much it actually hurts people who might or might not make some money off of this, because
Right.
Inevitably, what happens is they start regulating how those people make money, and
Right.
you can't have parties at your house anymore.
Right, but this is the point, right? It's like the effect of the gig economy on the stakeholders is becoming a serious issue, right? I mean, one of the issues that the mayor in Portland, Maine, what they're running on is how to deal with things like Airbnb ruining neighborhoods, ruining real estate prices, blah blah blah. I mean, these are becoming sort of the stakeholder topics of our generation, right?
Yes. It's so
I haven't convinced you or anyone, and we've run out of time on the big gig. And I didn't even mention the fact that you can now get a Uber copter from Lower Manhattan to JFK Airport for about $200.
Yeah, it's called a Newman. Adam Newman was there were reports of him sending employees out to the Hamptons by helicopter.
Oh, great.
He wouldn't allow not to make this another WeWork segment, but it's just so crazy. It's so amazing. He wouldn't allow meat or plastic anywhere like near him, but he would fly his employees to his Hamptons estate. This is pre-billions, mind you.
Yeah.
In order to go over paperwork, for instance.
Yeah, well.
So Uber getting in on that game.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. We got a bunch of biz nuggets today, as we usually do on Monday. So let's just get right at it. The first story is confusing, and part of our ongoing sort of trying to figure out Facebook in general, right? Because we talked about the last couple of weeks, we talked a lot about their push for free speech, right? Zuckerberg made an impassioned speech at Georgetown about the platform's belief in free speech, which is why they allow politicians essentially to lie about anything they want to, right?
But they did announce on Friday that Sheryl Sandberg announced that they will make a library of those lies available to you if you want to see all of them.
Sure. So these are a library of lies that people paid to put on Facebook.
A library.
A library. Okay, so first,
puns, lowest form of humor.
Facebook and Instagram have quietly updated the Facebook community standards language regarding permissible sexual expression on the social media platform. So what the hell am I talking about? Basically, they're talking about if you pair an emoji of an eggplant and or with a peach with an expression that is vaguely horny, it now qualifies essentially a sexual solicitation, and that's not allowed anymore.
Let me summarize this.
Yeah, can you do a better job? I'm trying to
Let me summarize
give
this
you the
for
educated answer, but you take care of this.
I can simplify this, right?
Yeah.
If my message is hot peach, eggplant, no more.
No.
If my message is Joe Biden rapes cats, fine. Especially if it comes from, say, Donald Trump's account.
Yeah.
A-OK.
Made me uncomfortable. I'm gonna jump. I'm jumping out
of that. Honestly, how long can
sweaty.
This last? This is
it's gonna, as we point out regularly, since Mark Zuckerberg has complete and utter control of Facebook, it's gonna last as long as Zuck wants it to last.
We should just call every Facebook story the 57% story, because it's what happens when you give one dude 57% of the voting power of a company.
Yeah, and yet owns what, less than 10% of it?
He owns like 4% of the capital.
Right.
Yeah.
Good job, everybody. All right. Next, in streaming wars, so NBC is considering giving away its ad-supported version of its new streaming service app, which they call Peacock.
Ouch.
They're considering giving it away for free. Right? So what is this? TV? You know why I bring this up? Because this proves my point that internet, apps, Netflix, all this crap, it's sin, right?
Please get off your high horse.
Sin taxes let the sin wars, let the regulation begin.
Climb off your peacock and we just need to admit that.
Yeah.
I think actually embedded in this free conversation, they're trying to do two things, because Apple's doing the same thing. If you buy a new iPhone, they'll give you Apple TV free for a year. In Disney Plus, they're talking about it similarly, right? Like, package deals where you get it free for some portion of time. First of all,
taste of the crack.
They are desperate to chip into Netflix's 125 million users, which they don't need help with. Netflix just saw the first decrease in its user base in a long time, right? Because Netflix raised its price to $11.99. And all these other companies are hoping, like, they're just swelling with desire to, you like that? Swelling with desire to grab those users.
And
they are turgid with user desire. So this is one way to chip into it. Give it to them free, get them hooked, and hope that they pay. I think actually in the back of their minds, the unspoken thing here, desperately afraid someone's going to wake up and say, I'm paying $150 a month for like 14 services and internet that I could just get with cable. Cable television is the answer.
But there's Friends to watch.
On demand. If I don't get it right now, I'm out.
There's a middling show from the 90s called Friends, and we all need it. Next, in Biz Nuggets, cybersecurity firms are having trouble attracting and keeping skilled workers to help protect networks. I don't like this. Some 2.8 million professionals work in cybersecurity, but an additional 4 million trained workers would be needed to close the skills gap and properly defend our cybersecurity airwaves.
So whose exactly? Because it's not ours. Facebook owns 2 billion users' data that we give them willingly.
Yeah. Okay, but still, I don't like this. This is trouble.
Yeah, I don't know. We talked about this before. We've talked about it in pre-production. Which autocratic or mysterious owner of our data is better? Is it better to give like China through TikTok all of our data? Is it better to give Russian hackers all of our data? Or maybe we should just give it all to 57%. Maybe that's
just
57 Zuck.
He could be a little Chinese and Russian. Now, speaking of Russia, so there's a new sovereign internet law that went into effect in Russia last week. This is crazy. The law tightens Moscow's control over the country's internet infrastructure and aims to provide a way for Russia to disconnect its networks from the rest of the world. Maybe this is where we're headed? Each sovereign nation with its own propaganda and internet. Is that possible, Matt?
Yeah. I mean, if move on. This is like
finally, we're over time here. Finally, in my favorite story ever. Yeah. Microsoft Japan is testing a 4-day work week and has found an almost 40% jump in productivity levels after cutting its work hours as part of a wider project to promote healthier work-life balance.
They're soon going to find Ooh, slow clap. They're soon going to find out that a 1-day work week improves productivity 3,000%.
You're talking my language, Matt. All right, that's it for Biz Nuggets. So let's move on to Matt Makes. Matt's going to make something for us today. You're on the clock, sir.
Today, Matt's making some math.
Ooh, I like it.
So I want to talk about layoffs. Uber's was in the news, and we talked about them a little bit earlier in the gig economy and all that nonsense. But Uber was in the news for announcing 1,000 layoffs in the latest round of cuts. But in the past week and a half, Juul's making layoffs. WeWork, obviously, making layoffs. Walgreens there's a bunch of layoffs. And you had GM with the strike, and there's another auto strike on. I think I saw for our GMC Mac workers are about to strike. So I wanted to talk about layoffs and workers in general.
Get to the math, Matt. Let's do it.
So let's just get right into the numbers here. What I did was I looked at companies that announced major or minor layoffs since 2016.
Okay.
Now, the craziest part to pulling that data is actually 80% of an index like MSCI's ACWI index, which is like a global, massive global index, big companies in the world. 80% of them have had some sort of layoff announcement since 2016.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's kind of a lot.
It is a lot, but is it surprising?
It's not. Well, I mean, it's supposed to be heady times with low, unemployment in places like the U.S. and throughout Europe, right? So it does seem a little bit crazy to me. And in the U.S., that number is actually exactly 80% of the companies in the U.S. Mm-hmm. Now, that equates to the companies that have announced some sort of layoff. They employ 27 million people in the United States alone. Right. I mean, globally, you're talking more like 40 or 50 million people. So it's a lot of people. Who are going to work, who have heard about a layoff in the last 3 years in some place in their company, and they're probably mildly petrified.
I was going to say, or how about depressed?
This is what's interesting to me about like the jobs numbers, because we just heard last week about jobs numbers being good. Everyone's feeling good about the economy. And yet I can point to arguably 27 million U.S. employees who are kind of like, that's great, except that I'm a little nervous about my job.
Yeah, wonderful, but I am constantly uncomfortable, and it's not because of my Depends diapers.
They are itchy. I'm wearing them now. Now, in order to actually make that number a little bit more meaningful, because 27 million is like an abstract who cares number, I wanted to turn it into something else. So what I did was
Matt makes math, everybody.
This is where I make some math. I discovered that the average cubicle farm holds about 12 people. Okay. So this is based on some numbers that don't matter. They're from a study from Hayworth by Judy Voss. Judy, shout out. Nice work on this study from about the year 2000. So it's a little bit of an old study.
Farm. Okay.
Cube farm. So, like when you walk into like a call center or an office, there's like cubicles. The cubes are like arranged on average in 12. Like there's 12-ish put together. That's kind of average-ish. Okay. So take that number now, 12 person per cube farm. Now we're talking about 2.2 million cube farms in the U.S. All right. I love that visual. I love
2.2 million cube farms.
I would just like to think of like an entire cornfield in Iowa that's just cube farms.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. Why are we using that? I don't want to derail you too much here, but why are we using farming terminology as part of
they call it the bullpen. They call it.
That's true. All right, I'll give it.
The Matrix. I don't know. But I wanted to put like the announcements by Uber and WeWork into some sort of context. So Cube Farms is a good way to start. Now, the other way announcing a layoff and how many people actually, leave the company are two different things. So I pulled data on employee turnover. So actually, while there's like 2.2 million cube farms employed, in the U.S., under 9% of companies actually report turnover. So we don't actually know.
What does that mean exactly?
So what does that mean? What we know is companies announce in the news or in investor presentations that there's going to be some sort of layoff. They're planning some sort of layoff.
Right.
What we don't really know is that like 90% of companies don't actually tell you how many people got laid off or how many people turned over inside their company. The point here is we know shit about employees in these companies. We basically know nothing.
Which is crazy, but yeah.
But if I focus in on just the ones who tell us what we know in the U.S., U.S. companies, this is U.S. companies who tell you something about their turnover. How many, here's the question, here's where the math got me. I wanted to know, in the U.S., if I'm working in a cubicle bullpen matrix farm, because apparently you're anti-farmer.
No, I didn't say that.
If I'm working in one of those things,
yeah,
how many people are either gone or I don't recognize in the last 3 years.
Okay, good. I like that. How many?
So take a guess.
Okay. So an average
Take a
farm
guess.
holds 12 people. So I'm
Take
going
a
to say
guess at
3.
WeWork, okay?
Oh,
You're
yeah.
working at WeWork.
Yeah.
Adam Newman just literally went out on a boat full of money, left the company, and they're announcing all these cuts.
Uh-huh.
You're looking around at your Cube Farm mates and you're saying, which one of these jackasses are going to be left? Or am I the jackass?
Yeah.
How many jackasses are there in your Cube Farm?
Out of 12.
Out of 12.
I'm going to say at WeWork, I'm going to guess high and say like a third.
You are very close, my friend. WeWork wins Cube Farm losses, if that's a thing.
Yeah.
You have WeWork, an average, going into next year, you can expect 3 of your Cube Farm mates will be totally different or gone. This in stark contrast to there's FedEx, which I can estimate about 25,000 Cube Farm matrices at FedEx. Every year, about 2 of those people are different.
Okay.
So that was my data today. WeWork stood out. In contrast to Uber, actually, Uber, who made the announcement of employee cuts.
Yeah.
You're basically only losing about 1 person per Cube Farm at Uber.
You're saying here's what Matt's saying. So Matt's saying that if you work at Uber, you work at Uber, you're stuck at Uber. That's the first thing he's saying. And secondly, he's saying how the hell did Adam Newman walk off with $1.7 billion?
That's what I say that. That's what I say every day to everyone I've ever met.
Okay, Matt, that was beautiful. And of course, you were way over, but it's a Monday and I'm going to allow it. This is Business Pants. We will see you tomorrow at noon.
We will see you tomorrow at noon.
If you're streaming online. Otherwise, find us at your podcast gumball machine, wherever you get your podcasts.
iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify. We are everywhere. You are Damian Rollis. I am Matt Moscardi. This is Business Pants. We are Free Float Media.
See you tomorrow, Matt.
See you tomorrow.